Have you ever looked up at the night sky and wondered what secrets it holds? What if I told you that in 1947, a brilliant astronomer discovered something so impossible, so terrifying, that it drove her to the very edge of sanity? This is the story of Dr. Helena Marwick, the woman who found two moons that defied every law of physics we know, and how they became her eternal companions in ways no human should ever experience. What you're about to hear has been buried in classified government files for over 70 years. The astronomical community refuses to acknowledge it. Her colleagues branded her insane, but the evidence, hidden away in forgotten archives, tells a different story entirely. A story that will make you question everything you think you know about our universe, and about the thin line between scientific discovery and cosmic horror. Stay with me, because this tale will take you to places where science meets the impossible, where obsession becomes damnation, and where the stars themselves seem to watch with malevolent intent. Dr. Helena Marwick was not your typical astronomer. Born in 1912 in a small Scottish village, she showed an otherworldly fascination with celestial bodies from childhood. While other children played with dolls, Helena dissected dead birds to understand anatomy, claiming she needed to know how things worked up there versus down here. Her parents, deeply religious folk, were disturbed by their daughter's morbid curiosities. But Helena's genius was undeniable. By 25, she had earned her doctorate in astronomy from Cambridge and secured a position at the Mount Wilson Observatory in California. Her specialty was lunar mechanics, the study of how our moon moves through space. She spent her nights alone in the observatory dome, her eye pressed against the telescope eyepiece, mapping every crater and measuring every wobble of our celestial companion. But Helena was different from her male colleagues in ways that went beyond gender. She claimed she could feel the moon's gravitational pull in her bones, could sense its phases without looking at a calendar. Other astronomers dismissed this as feminine hysteria, but Helena's calculations were always precise, her observations always accurate. She had an almost supernatural connection to the lunar cycle that both fascinated and unnerved those around her. The first anomaly appeared on March 15, 1947. Helena was conducting routine observations when she noticed something impossible in her telescope's field of view. A second moon, roughly half the size of our natural satellite, had appeared approximately 30,000 miles away from Earth's moon. This wasn't possible. No astronomical body of that size could simply materialize without causing massive gravitational disruptions. Helena immediately checked her equipment, convinced she was seeing a reflection or optical illusion. But the readings were consistent. She spent the entire night documenting this mysterious second moon, noting its odd, perfectly spherical shape and its strange, almost luminescent surface that seemed to pulse with its own inner light. When dawn broke, Helena rushed to inform her supervisor, Dr. Edmund Blackwood, but when they returned to the telescope, the second moon was gone. Blackwood accused Helena of hallucination, suggesting she needed rest and perhaps psychiatric evaluation. Helena was devastated but not defeated. She knew what she had seen. 3 nights later, the second moon returned. This time, Helena was ready. She had set up photographic equipment and multiple telescopes. The images she captured that night would later be confiscated by government agents, but Helena had hidden copies in a secret location. These photographs showed something that challenged everything we know about celestial mechanics. The second moon wasn't just orbiting Earth randomly. It was following a precise path that seemed to mirror Helena's own movements on the observatory grounds. When she walked to the eastern observation deck, the moon drifted eastward. When she moved west, it followed. The moon was tracking her, but the true horror was yet to come. On the seventh night of observations, a third moon appeared. This one was smaller, more erratic in its movements, and seemed to flicker in and out of existence like a dying star. Helena realized with growing dread that these weren't natural moons at all. They were something else entirely, something that had noticed her watching them and had begun watching her back. Helena's behavior began to deteriorate rapidly. Her colleagues noticed she had stopped sleeping during the day. choosing instead to wander the observatory grounds, constantly looking up at the sky even when the moons were invisible. She started talking to herself, or rather, talking to something above her that no one else could see. She claimed the moons were communicating with her, showing her visions of other worlds, other realities where the laws of physics worked differently. The breaking point came on April 30th, 1947. Helena's assistant, a young graduate student named Thomas Chen, found her that morning standing naked on the observatory roof, her arms stretched toward the sky, speaking in a language he had never heard before. Her skin was covered in strange, circular markings that looked like craters, and her eyes had turned completely white. She was perfectly motionless, as if in a trance, and her body temperature had dropped to near hypothermic levels. When they finally brought Helena down from the roof, she claimed she had been visiting her moons. She described in vivid detail the surface of each one, their composition, their purpose. According to Helena, these weren't moons at all, but observation posts from another dimension, places where beings like herself were meant to serve as bridges between realities. Helena explained that the moons had chosen her because of her unique sensitivity to gravitational fields. They needed someone who could exist simultaneously in both worlds, someone who could serve as an anchor point for their observations of our reality. The crater-like marks on her skin, she claimed, were not injuries, but modifications, transformations that would allow her to survive in the vacuum of space that her superiors immediately had. Helena committed to the Camarillo State Mental Hospital, where she was diagnosed with severe schizophrenia and subjected to experimental treatments including electroshock therapy and lobotomy procedures. But even in her padded cell, Helena continued to track the moon's positions with perfect accuracy, scratching calculations into the walls with her fingernails until they were ground down to bloody stumps. The most disturbing aspect of Helena's case was that her astronomical calculations continued to be correct. From her hospital room, with no access to telescopes or star charts, she accurately predicted eclipses, meteor showers, and satellite positions years in advance. When government scientists secretly tested her predictions against classified space program data, they found her accuracy rate was 100%. Dr. Margaret Foster, Helena's psychiatrist at Camarillo, documented some of the most unsettling aspects of her patient's condition. Helena claimed she could still see her moons every night, regardless of weather conditions or physical barriers. She described their surfaces in increasing detail, mentioning structures and activities that seemed to indicate intelligence. Most disturbing were Helena's drawings, intricate sketches of lunar landscapes that showed what appeared to be observatories and laboratories built into crater walls. During her third year at Camarillo, Helena began to exhibit physical changes that medical staff couldn't explain. Her bone density increased dramatically, her lung capacity expanded, and her body began to adapt to lower temperatures and reduced atmospheric pressure. Blood tests showed unusual mineral concentrations, particularly high levels of titanium and aluminum compounds typically found in lunar soil. Helena also developed an ability to remain conscious and functional during the new moon phases when her mysterious companions were supposedly closest to Earth. During these times, she would enter trance-like states and produce detailed star maps of regions of space that hadn't been discovered yet. NASA later confirmed the accuracy of these maps during their deep space missions in the 1960s and 70s. The most chilling testimony came from night shift nurses who reported seeing Helena floating 6 inches above her bed during certain lunar phases, rotating slowly as if experiencing zero gravity. Security cameras captured these incidents, but the footage was confiscated by federal agents and classified under national security protocols. Helena's final documented words were spoken to Dr. Foster during their last session in 1952. She claimed that her time as a bridge between worlds was nearly complete, and that soon she would join her moons permanently. She described the process as a form of death and rebirth, where her consciousness would be preserved in the gravitational field between Earth and her celestial companions. On the night of May 13, 1952, exactly 5 years after her first sighting, Helena Marwick disappeared from her locked hospital room. No doors or windows had been opened. No security systems had been breached. The only trace left behind was a perfect circle of metallic dust on her bed that contained the same mineral composition as lunar regolith. What happened next reveals the true scope of this cosmic horror story. Within hours of Helena's disappearance, government agents descended on Camarillo State Hospital. Every record of Helena's treatment was confiscated. Every staff member was sworn to secrecy under threat of treason charges, and the entire wing where she had been held was permanently sealed. The official story was that Helena had died of complications from her psychiatric treatments and been buried in an unmarked grave. But private investigators hired by her family found no death certificate, no burial record, and no physical evidence that Helena Marwick had ever existed at all. It was as if she had been completely erased from history. The astronomical community was similarly scrubbed of any reference to Helena's work. Her published papers were removed from scientific journals. Her observatory records were destroyed, and her colleagues were encouraged to sign agreements stating they had never worked with anyone by that name. The Mount Wilson Observatory claimed no record of ever employing a Dr. Helena Marwick, but the story doesn't end there. Starting in 1953, amateur astronomers around the world began reporting similar phenomena. Small, unnatural moons appearing and disappearing in Earth's orbit, always visible to only one observer at a time. These sightings followed a pattern that investigators would later realize corresponded to the locations of women who shared Helena's unique psychological and physiological profile. Dr. Sarah Morrison in Australia saw them in 1955. Dr. Yuki Tanaka in Japan observed them in 1958. Each woman was a brilliant astronomer. Each reported the same impossible phenomena, and each eventually disappeared under mysterious circumstances. The pattern suggested that Helena's moons were still active, still searching for suitable candidates to serve as interdimensional bridges. The most credible evidence of ongoing activity came from Dr. Rebecca Walsh, a lunar geologist working for NASA in the 1970s. Dr. Walsh had been assigned to analyze soil samples brought back from the Apollo missions when she began experiencing visions of the moon's surface. She claimed she could see structures and activities that weren't visible in any photographs or documented by any astronauts. Dr. Walsh's reports were initially dismissed, but when she began accurately predicting the locations of mineral deposits and geological features on subsequent missions, NASA secretly began studying her abilities. Her psychological profile matched Helena's almost exactly, and she reported the same gravitational sensitivity and lunar phase awareness that had characterized the original case. The NASA files, obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests in the 2000s, revealed that Dr. Walsh was eventually recruited into a classified program called Project Selenite. This program investigated reports of anomalous lunar phenomena and attempted to recreate Helena's interdimensional bridge capabilities under controlled conditions. Dr. Walsh disappeared in 1979 during a simulated zero experiment. Like Helena, she vanished from a secure facility without triggering any alarms or leaving any physical trace. The Project Selenita's files were immediately classified, and all research into lunar anomalies was transferred to black budget programs beyond public oversight. Today, reports of anomalous moons continue to surface. Modern digital cameras and satellite imagery have captured objects that match Helena's original descriptions, but these images are quickly debunked or dismissed by official sources. Social media posts showing mysterious lunar companions are routinely deleted, and users who persist in sharing such content often find their accounts permanently suspended. The psychological profile associated with these sightings has been refined over the decades. The women who experience lunar anomalies typically share certain characteristics: high intelligence, sensitivity to electromagnetic fields, irregular sleep patterns that correspond to lunar cycles, and childhood experiences of feeling different or chosen for some undefined purpose. Most disturbing are the genetic studies that suggest these women may represent an evolutionary branch of humanity that is naturally adapted for space travel and extended exposure to low-gravity environments. If this theory is correct, then Helena's moons may not be alien observers, but advanced scouts for humanity's eventual expansion into space, selecting and preparing individuals who possess the necessary biological adaptations. The technological implications are staggering. If Helena's interdimensional bridge theory is correct, then these mysterious moons represent a form of faster-than-light communication and travel that could revolutionize space exploration. Government black projects may have been attempting to reverse engineer this technology for decades, using the women who exhibit lunar sensitivity as unwilling test subjects. Recent declassified documents from the Department of Defense reveal the existence of a program called Operation Lunar Reach, which has been monitoring women with Helena's psychological profile since the 1960s. The program's stated goal is to identify and evaluate candidates for advanced aerospace applications, but the details remain heavily redacted. The most chilling aspect of these modern developments is the suggestion that Helena herself may still be active. Reports from the International Space Station describe encounters with a female figure visible in the vacuum of space, always appearing during lunar eclipse events. The figure matches Helena's description and seems to be observing Earth with the same intense focus that characterized her original astronomical work. As we reach the end of this terrifying tale, we're left with more questions than answers. Was Helena Marwick a brilliant scientist who discovered something beyond human understanding? Or was she the victim of an elaborate government experiment in psychological manipulation? Were her mysterious moons real interdimensional observers, or were they hallucinations induced by classified mind control programs? The truth may be more complex than either explanation allows. Perhaps Helena's story represents the first documented case of human evolution into something adapted for life beyond Earth's atmosphere. Perhaps her moons were not observers from another dimension, but harbingers of humanity's cosmic destiny, preparing us for a future where the boundaries between Earth and space become meaningless. What we do know is that Helena Marwick's legacy continues to influence events today. Women around the world still report seeing her moons, still experience the same gravitational sensitivity and lunar awareness that marked her as special. Government programs continue to monitor these individuals, and black budget projects continue to study the implications of their abilities. The next time you look up at the night sky, remember Helena's story. Remember that the universe may be far stranger and more dangerous than we imagine. And if you happen to be a woman with an unusual sensitivity to lunar cycles, an unexplained fascination with space, or dreams of floating among the stars, be very careful who you tell. Because somewhere in the darkness between Earth and Moon, Helena's mysterious companions may still be watching, waiting for the next suitable candidate to join their interdimensional bridge. The sky above us is not the limit of human experience, but perhaps just the beginning of a cosmic horror story that started with one woman's insatiable curiosity and may end with the transformation of our entire species into something no longer recognizably human. Sleep well, and try not to look too closely at the moon tonight. You never know what might be looking back.